and welcome to my review of It, which I warn you is gonna be a little bit full of unpopular opinions, because I did not like it. I didn't like the movie that just came out a couple months ago. I kind of liked the miniseries, which I just watched like a couple months before the movie came out. I didn't watch it as a kid, but I just discovered it just a few months ago. But all right, anyway, It so the first thing I had a problem with was the fact that it wasn't scary. It was kind of silly. It was funny. Like, just a lot of the stuff with the clown was kind of just silly and not scary at all. And I've never been scared of clowns, and I've never really understood why people are. Maybe it's because they saw it as a child, but I didn't see it as a child, so I'm not scared of clowns. So all the stuff the clown did, well, it might be scary to people who are scared of clowns just because they're scared of clowns. It wasn't scary. And there was a lot of CGI in the movie that kind of ruined it. Like, it wasn't great CGI, and it was also too much. Like, there's a scene in the trailer, and I'm just gonna give like spoilers, I guess, where Georgie's saying, "You'll float too, you'll float too, you'll float too," again and again. And in the movie, that scene happens, but it happens with like CGI over Georgie's face, making him look all dead and weird and stuff. And it's actually less scary because of that. I think that the kid's face being all angry and normal was actually way scarier than the CGI face that they gave him. So they actually kind of ruined it and made it less scary. And that was the case in a couple spots where I thought the CGI was just not that great. Sorry. But that's not my main problem with this movie. My main problem is that there's this quote unquote losers club that's not really a losers club. They're not losers. They and I feel like this is something that a lot of shows and books and all forms of entertainment do. They do this thing where the characters will say, or like it'll be said about the characters, that they're so like lame and not attractive and blah blah blah, whereas they actually are. And that shows, like, in the movie like, it's actually shown in the movie that they actually are cool and attractive and blah blah blah, all the things that they said that they weren't. And I feel like that's a way of like getting, like, whoever, writes these things, that's their way of getting their hooks into both groups of people who are or were losers and people who aren't or weren't losers, because both of them think they can relate to these characters. So like with these characters specifically, just first of all, like the boys, I know that they each had like their own special sort of defects, kind of, Bill had his stutter, and Richie didn't have anything. And then the one kid, I can't remember, but he's like a germaphobe, and then one of the kids is black and one of the kids is fat. And so they each have like these little things that could make them targets. But the thing is, like, this movie doesn't do a good job of like making those things seem really prominent and making them seem like those are the reasons that people are picking on them. People don't point those things out that much in this movie, if at all. Like, for the most part, these kids seem really confident, like super confident. Like, there's this scene where all the boys are like gathered on like this cliff and they're gonna jump into the water and they're all in their underwear together. Like they didn't have any problem at all just being in their underwear together, even though they don't, a lot of them like just met, or like a few of them, or maybe just one of them. But like still, like, do they not have any insecurities about that? Like in the original miniseries, which I shouldn't get into this now because I'm gonna compare it to the miniseries later, but like the germaphobe kind of was shown to like have like, I mean, maybe it was just his mom, but like she didn't let him shower with the other boys, so he was kind of understandably timid about like, you know, I think about like being naked with other kids. And most people are, and yet these kids seem to have no problem with it. They do it for fun when they're going swimming, and like they seem like really outspoken, and just like, especially Richie, like he's very loud and outspoken, and yeah, just like confident, like I said. And they all and there's a lot of them, you know, like even at the start of the movie there's like the 3 or 4 main kids, the 4 main kids that start the movie, and then they add the 3 others. The 4 friends, like each one of those boys had 3 friends. That's a lot of friends to have. Like, how does that make you a loser? I did not have that many friends at any one point in my childhood. Like, you know, only cool kids have like a lot of friends like that. So that's another reason why they're not losers. They just say that they are. And also, they all seem to have like really normal, fun interests, like activities that they would do for fun. They went like swimming, and that was something that they, you know, they didn't have like as a group something that was like really weird, which is, you know, I'm going to compare it to Stranger Things because everyone compares this to Stranger Things. Like in Stranger Things, you can definitely understand why those kids are like losers, because, you know, even though there are like a lot of them, so they're, you know, like I said, you only have a lot of friends if you're like kind of cool. They as a group had like an interest in really nerdy things, like, you know, stuff that, and nerdy stuff was not cool back in the 80s, right? So they liked Dungeons and Dragons and science and technology and stuff, and that was not cool back in the day, and that was something that they as a group liked, and that's one reason why they as a group would not be considered cool, you know, in their school. And also, like, the kids in Stranger Things have like the kind of personality that would get picked on. They're all like pretty quiet, sensitive kids, and those are the kinds of kids, in my experience, that get picked on. It's not the confident, outgoing, loud kids. It's the quiet, sensitive ones. So like that's one way that like Stranger Things is way better than it. Because, you know, the kids in Stranger Things actually are losers, and I actually do relate to them, you know? Where, like I said, the it kids are not. They just say that they are so that people who were losers as kids can kind of feel like, you know, they're being represented on screen, and then people who are actually really outgoing and had a lot of friends and were really cool can also feel like they relate to the kids on screen. And the same thing goes for the one girl in the group who really was the girl of the group. She never became like just like a you know, just like one of the friends. Like everyone in the group saw her as like a girl, and everyone saw her, you know, as kind of separate from them, and that was kind of sad, and like I didn't like that. But it kind of goes with her character, because she also, like, maybe this was actually a thing in the 80s where you couldn't win either way, but like people were picking on Beverly for apparently having, you know, had sexual experiences, and then also, though, like, people were getting made fun of for being virgins. So, like, maybe people just couldn't win either way back in the 80s. I don't know. I really don't. But it just seems like another way to, like, get, you know, for the writers to get their hooks in, like, both groups of people. People who are sexually experienced and people who are not. Like both of them can feel like, oh yeah, I'm so picked on. Cause, and the thing is like, and because both can feel like they're cool too, right? Like people who are sexually experienced and people who are or were not as kids. Because that's, you know, what this movie does is it tries to take these quote unquote losers and make them like, you know, people who everyone wants to be like and make them cool when they already are. So like Beverly, like I was saying, she's apparently, you know, she gets made fun of a lot or she gets picked on for having sexual experiences, but she hasn't, yet, I don't think, right? She's a virgin, but she's really confident. Like she goes up and she flirts with like this older man at like the drugstore to get, you know, to give a window of time for her friends to like steal some stuff. Like she very confidently like flirts with him. Like who, like, do you know any real 13-year-old girls who have the confidence to do that? Maybe there are a few, I'm sure, but for the most part, those are few and far between, and they're like the cool girls. They're the confident, cool girls. And so I don't see how she's a loser either. I think that she's like super, like, and she's super pretty. Everybody thinks she's like really attractive, everybody. And so it's like, nothing about this girl really makes me think that she's a loser, but she definitely was abused. Like that whole thing with her dad and how creepy it was really awful. And I felt really bad for her, but like still, that doesn't, I don't see how that makes her like a loser in society's eyes. Like, because nobody knew about that stuff. All they knew is that she was super pretty and she was apparently super confident and she was a girl. And everyone saw her that way, it seemed like. So I don't know why any of these kids were getting picked on. It's the, you know, the bottom line. Yeah, I mean, and now I can compare it to the original miniseries where, like, I did feel like I knew why these kids were getting picked on because the bullies, like, specifically, you know, picked on them for specific reasons. Like, you know, they, you know, said that they made fun of, you know, Bill's stutter multiple times, and they pointed out the fact that, Mike was black, and they pointed out the fact that, the germaphobe was, like, kinda, you know, like, maybe kinda gay. I don't know if he really was, but, like, it's hard to say, but, like, he kinda was. And so these are things that people actually get picked on for, and they were made a big deal of in the original miniseries. So I thought the original miniseries was way better in that regard. And also, like, they changed Mike's, maybe, I don't know, do they not think that black kids still get picked on for being black? Because I'm sure that they do. And the thing is, I guess they felt like that wasn't enough of, like, a problem for Mike. They had to give him, like, this whole other thing where he was, like, in a burning building with his parents, and he saw them, like, burn to death, and that's, like, wow, that's, what the heck? That's insane. That's, like, a really big thing to, like, give him, in addition to him being black. And also there was the thing where he's, like, working in a slaughterhouse, and they gave him that, too, and, like, and the thing is, well, I'm vegan, so obviously I don't approve of it, and it was almost like they were, like, the message of the story ended up being that he did end up, being, like, a slaughterer. Like, he ended up kind of, like, embracing it, is almost what it seemed like, and I am, like, super against that. So, like, they gave him all these extra things that were, like, really heavy and big and dark, when I don't think they needed all that. And so, why did that happen? There were a lot of things that I was like, why why, like, and a lot of little things that didn't make sense. Like at first, like the first time they kind of wound the clown and he starts to get away, Bill's like, go after him, make sure he's dead. But then at the end of the movie, he does like almost the exact same thing and kind of like, sorry, there was a crack. I don't know what that was. It's creepy. Anyway, he kind of like slithers off. He slithers off into the hole, and why am I talking like this? Anyway, and this time they're all like perfectly happy to just kind of like let him slink off and whatever. It's just kind of like meh. So I don't understand that. And then also in the miniseries, they had like this really cool moral of the story that I thought they were going for, and then they didn't. So what it seemed like to me was because in the miniseries they make a big deal of the fact that nobody in the town acknowledges the bad stuff that's happening. Only the kids do, and only this group of kids. And so they're the only ones that can stop it. And so I thought, like, there was, like, a really deep message about how, like, as a vegan, like, I know this. In real life, people just kind of, like, ignore the bad stuff. They ignore the animals being tortured and murdered, and they kind of just go along, right? And that leads to, like, a bad world. And, like, only the people who acknowledge this bad stuff is happening can change the world. And that's what I thought... the original miniseries, that's what I thought the moral of it was, but then they totally just like went the other way with it, and because at the very end, all the adults, like all the kids who have turned into adults now, are also forgetting about all the bad stuff. They're just like, it's they've also fallen under this spell of like whatever it was that's keeping everyone from kind of remembering or acknowledging the bad stuff. Like, they specifically say that they have trouble, like, even remembering each other sometimes. So, it ended up being, like, the moral of the story was nothing. Like, what was it? Yeah, it didn't make any sense. It didn't go in the direction I thought it was going to go in. It didn't go in any real direction. So, I thought in this new movie that it was a really good opportunity for them to like actually take that message and run with it and actually follow through with it. But they did almost nothing with that message, that idea. Like, it's barely even mentioned that the vast majority of people in this town refuse to acknowledge the bad stuff that's happening. It's mentioned like once, and then it's shown like once with like the people in the car driving past as Ben was getting attacked by the bullies. And that's another thing, by the way, just as a side note, it doesn't, the bullying in this movie was way over the top compared to like the bullying in the original miniseries, I feel like, because like, I mean, and I guess it was pretty over the top in the miniseries too, but I hate it when they go like really over the top with it and act like this kind of stuff actually happened in the, back in the day, which maybe it did. But it really seems very unlikely because, like, was there any real bully that was, like, brazen and stupid enough to, like, carve his name into another kid's stomach? Because that would lead directly back to him. Even just carving the first letter of his name, the H. Like, I don't see how why he didn't think to, like, go to the adult and be like, yeah, his name is Henry, and he carved an H into my stomach. There's proof right there. It doesn't make sense. Like, who would do that? Because there's no way you can just like deny it and be like, oh yeah, he fell and that's how that H got carved into his stomach and so I'm innocent. Like, you can't claim that because that's so over the top and crazy, right? So that was another thing that bugged me about this movie, is that they kind of like went way over the top with like the bullying, the violence and stuff. So the last thing is the sexual assaults. like I said, they went really over the top with the violence in this movie, and I feel like, so they did that with, you know, the bully, and then they did that with Beverly and her dad, and I just feel like, so in the original miniseries, all the dad does really is like, he's like super creepy, and it's like very lightly implied to maybe be jealous of boys that Beverly might like, and that's creepy enough. That's more than enough, right? Like, I just made a whole video about how, you know, you don't have to go that far with sexual assault. Like, we get the point. Like, it's horrible. It's very damaging to any character or any person without it being that bad. So they went really far with it this time, and I just think that having her dad full on like trying to rape her was too much. Like, in the original miniseries, they did this thing where, yeah, he abused her, he slapped her, and he was super, he gave off like these really molestery vibes, but didn't actually do anything. And then when they did this really cool thing, actually, where she grew up and then was like attracted to this guy who was like into really hardcore BDSM and was like crazy and abusive. And I thought that was really brilliant, because that shows, yeah, that, even just like being, I think whenever a child is like physically or emotionally or mentally or whatever abused by specifically a parent of the opposite sex, it kind of really affects the child in their sexual and romantic relationships later on. I mean, unless they're, gay, but you know what I mean. Like, if you're abused by the parent of the sex that you're attracted to, that's going to affect how you have relationships with people in the future. And I think that they really showed that, like, very cleverly with Beverly. Cleverly with Beverly, with the way that she grew up and then got into a relationship with an abusive guy because her father was abusive. Whereas in this movie, he like I said, like full on attacked her, and just kind of out of nowhere too, and it was crazy and really upsetting and just too much. Like, no, it didn't need to go there, I don't think. Because it's scary enough for a girl to just be like, to just live with a guy who seems like he might be violent. Like, I was just talking about this with my review of Stranger Things 2. Like, 11 is living with the sheriff, and he's kind of violent, and I imagine that's scary. I know that that's scary for a girl. So, it was just too much. I didn't like it at all, what they did here with Beverly and her dad. So yeah, those are my problems with this movie. I'm sorry if you liked it, and if it meant a lot to you, and I'm hurting your feelings with this. I really am sorry. I didn't mean to do that. This is just my honest review, and let me know what you think. If you have like any defenses for it, for the problems that I brought up, just sound up in the comments, and just let me know why you liked this movie. If you agree with the fact that it had some problems. All right. Thanks for watching. Bye.